Hello everyone, welcome to this weekly update video for the 8th of August. Starting the week commencing the 7th of August is what this video is really about, covering the last few weeks, but I'm recording it on Tuesday the 8th. So the first thing we're going to discuss is TFM, and Andy was recently speaking within one of our community groups about Navigraph support, to say that they've had contact from the CEO and hopefully Navigraph will have TFM within their hub maybe by the end of the week. Obviously that's not to say that suddenly TFM is going to have, you know, a whole slew of new features just because Navigraph support's been added, but it's obviously a great step in the right direction for quite a few features that were looking for Navigraph support, that were waiting on Navigraph support to actually then be fully integrated. So that's one good thing that will soon be included. In the recent blog post from the previous week, they spoke about the fact that, as we know, they are reorganizing the code base. They're attempting to kind of fix existing bugs as they go along so that they're not left with a massive pile of bugs to deal with even after the code's been reorganized. Obviously, they're also converting it to the new framework, and it's an ongoing process. So this is not something that will majorly slow down TFM. It's not something that is going to leave you hanging forever. But it's something that's going to be continuing on in the background, and obviously will take up, you know, resources of TFM, but it's not the only focus. Now, there was a video released on First Officer's YouTube channel a couple of weeks back, demoing the new version that is approaching for First Officer next. Now, the features that are relevant to BVI pilots. The first thing I wanted to talk about was verbose messaging of flows. So this is the idea that the items that are being performed by the co-pilot, whatever he's doing, will be read to you via TTS. So if he's setting the IRS, if he's adjusting panel brightness, if he's setting the you know, landing lights, whatever he's doing, the items will be read to you. Now, I'm kind of in two minds about this. You know, it's really great that the First Officer developer is working actively to support blind users, and we know that this is something that's been a bit of a problem. Of course, in First Officer Pro V2.04, there was a read-me view, or read-only view, I should say, that you could actually look what it was doing. Now in 2.05 that kind of changed, and you had to start using screen review. You could still see what he was doing. It was a little bit less accessible. You had to go down to the bottom with NVDA. Similar thing in Next. You can see what he's doing if you want to, but you do have to use screen review and go down to the bottom. So now you'll be able to have it read it out to you. Now obviously I know there's been some concern about kind of how spammy this will be, and it is going to be something that's configurable. You can turn it off and on. I think the one thing I would say is it's going to be useful for beginners, because here's the thing. It's great using First Officer, right? And it's a realistic thing. I don't buy the argument that, oh, you shouldn't use First Officer program. It's just a bit of a cop-out. You should do everything yourself, you know. It's like, well, maybe, but then don't they have a First Officer in real life? You know, these things are complex. This is why they have two pilots. Nothing wrong with using a First Officer program. There is something wrong with it, though, if you're a beginner and you just start out using it and you never really understand what it's doing. You know, you're just running a flow and you're just doing it because, you know, you have to run it, but you don't really know what it's doing. You know, you hear all these switches being flicked, but things can happen so quickly, and, you know, even TFM can be spammy. We know that. There's so many lights and switches that you can configure to read or not read. So you might be wondering, what is he doing? Well, now, especially as a beginner, you can actually hear what he's doing. Obviously, as a more experienced pilot, you might decide to turn that off. You don't need it jabbering away in your ears, spamming you, telling you that it's turning on the APU, it's doing that. You know, by that point, you probably know what it's doing. You know what's in the before start flow, at least you should, etc. So I can see a use for it. Whether you want it on all the time is probably not something that I would is up to you, but I would probably not have it on the whole time. It is going to have a career mode. This is similar to something like a pilot's life. It doesn't seem to have a multiplayer aspect as of yet, but it is going to be, you can create an airline, whether that be a real world airline. Depending on the region you create that airline, it will give you some schedules you can follow, or you can import your own. The aircraft will be dynamic, they will have dynamic failures, so it looks pretty cool. Similar to a lot of stuff that's out there, but the developer placed a lot of emphasis on kind of wanting it to be a feature that is realistic enough, but not too hardcore that you are very much kind of limited in what you can do, or you can only fly this aircraft because you've just started out. He also added the ability to really begin to customize the flows that First Officer performs, and what actions the pilot and co-pilot should perform, and in what order items should be performed in flows. So a lot of people might say they want to realistically operate with a certain airline SOP, that's standard operating procedure. Maybe you want to fly with Ryanair standard operating procedures. They're obviously quite different in the 737 to other airlines, so you can now set that up, create a Ryanair package if you know what the SOPs are, and people who are really hardcore into a certain airline may do that. So you can actually set it up to do exactly how they would perform the flows in that particular airline, and which parts will be performed by whom. So that's how that works, and it's a pretty cool feature. Obviously not really something you would probably look at straight out of the box, but if you are maybe a member of a virtual airline and you want to really realistically go with the SOPs, you could do that. Right, on to the next point that I wanted to raise, just P3D. There's been a bit of talk about kind of P3D. So TFM announced officially, I think I mentioned this a while back, P3D version 6 will not have TFM support. That doesn't mean it won't work necessarily, but there's nothing you're really going to be able to do with it, because the PMDGs are not supported in P3D version 6. And they're not testing it, they're not providing support. I did just want to emphasize though that version 5 and version 4 are still available for purchase. I didn't want people to think that, oh, version 6 is out, that's it now, and TFM's not supporting it, I can't buy P3D. You can still buy P3D version 5 and 4, still available for purchase. So you just gotta expand the section on the P3D website, and you will be able to find them. You'll still be able to purchase them. That's not to say, I'm not saying you should buy it. I know there's been some questions. It's still in that situation where it depends what you want to fly. If you want to fly long haul, you're going to have to get P3D. You don't really have a choice. If you're just interested in the 737 and maybe some AI flights, which AI is don't really learn anything, but it's okay. It's all right for a bit of a relaxing flight. Then you go for Microsoft, but it depends what you want. But version 5 is still available. Right, the next thing is SLC, self-loading cargo. Wow, that's a throwback, isn't it? That's something we haven't mentioned in a while. This was a passenger simulation program, similar, not a cargo program, minus the name there. It's similar to PackX, however, there was significant issues with it before. It was quite laggy with screen readers and stuff, and it just really got shunted behind PAX in the BVI community. He's recently released an update, the developer Steve, and there's some great videos on his YouTube if you want to see it in action. And there's some really cool features, still a couple of little accessibility things here and there, but there are some cool new features in version 1.6. So he talked about a new user interface. Now, this user interface, from first look, does seem to be pretty okay. The main issue that people seem to have been having is the way that you interact with the main button. Once you're actually in a flight, there's a system he's incorporated where you can left click, middle click, or right click to do different things. And some people have been having issues with that kind of, getting, especially the middle click to be either, if it's not on your mouse, to be simulated somehow. And so people have been in contact with him to ask maybe if there's an alternative way via hotkeys or something where you could access those menus a bit more simply. But in terms of what it adds that's really cool, you do have context-specific voice recognition. So depending on the scenario you're in, you'll be able to talk to the ground crew, talk to the cabin via voice recognition. Obviously, you have to say the right things. You can't just say any old thing and hope it interprets what you're saying. But it seems to be, from what I've been watching, the voice recognition seems pretty decent. And it seems like, as long as you say the correct cue, you will be good with that. There are updates to voice packs, so thousands of new sounds. There is a whole new ground crew implementation with voice packages, which you can speak to do pushbacks and things like that. Quite how that works in the payware aircraft in terms of, if you ask them to connect the ground power, I haven't tried that out, and so I don't know. You can ask for all those things, but they may well just be a more of a cosmetic thing. I've watched a couple of videos in the Airbus aircraft, the fly-by-wire and the Phoenix, and it didn't seem to actually follow the instructions. It was more of just a cosmetic thing, asking them to do it, via voice, but PMDG may be different. So there are multiple languages as well, and state dynamic announcements. So you can actually have the crew read off a safety video in multiple languages. Maybe you're flying, I don't know, a French airline, and you want to have it read off in English and then French. You can do that. There's some great videos, as I say, on his channel demoing this kind of stuff. Your pilot score is now also going to be dynamic, so it depends on how well you communicate just as much as how much you fly, how well you fly. So if you don't make the correct announcements at the correct times during the flight, you might find that the passengers get a bit irritated with you, which is quite funny. Right, that's going to do it pretty much. Don't forget, we do have the TFM anniversary flight coming up on the 2nd of September from Houston to Toronto. Apart from that, there was obviously going to be BVI events, but I won't put those here. They're more internal things. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I hope you enjoyed some of the plane spotting videos that I captured out in Greece. I thought it was a little bit of something different. I know for the blind viewers that we have, it may not be the most exciting thing, although you can enjoy the sound, but we do cater for sighted viewers when we can. And I know when we're simming, the visuals are not always entirely spot on. It's just a kind of a byproduct of having a vision impairment, but those videos were pretty good and seem to be pretty popular, so I'm glad that they were well received. All right, and thank you for 300 subscribers as well. I'll add that on the end. I might do another video on that, but anyway, yeah, thank you for over 300 subs. Yeah, pretty amazing, to be honest. So thanks very much, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that may be.